Hello, everyone. I hope you can see me. I hope you can hear me very well. So, this is more or less the first technical test if this new format can work or is working. And I would like to take the chance here to say hello to everyone that is actually tuning in, to everyone who was sending me a couple of questions already throughout the last weeks, because essentially the idea to start a format like this is based on the requests. On requests, I find myself regularly answering on the pertinent channels, so especially on LinkedIn. And I thought, why? And also, it's not possible to answer each and every single one of you in a one-on-one fashion. But why not doing it in a format like this, where we can discuss questions that are career-related, that might be important for you, but that also might be interesting to listen to or to think through for many other people. And the idea of this format now is to essentially making sure that you can ask whatever question you might have, and I will then try to do my best in order to answer these. So while I'm for sure not having all answers, I might have a perspective here that is helpful and that is also doable here to provide you with like some ideas for even if it's only half an hour or so, 45 minutes, on what we will go through today. So in the ideal world, I would now have the chance to see your questions here in the comments section. So feel free to just post them, and then I will try to go through them. We are live on a variety of different channels, so you might also see questions that are not popping up in your respective channel, but these questions might then just be from a different source. So you're not surprised and you're not wondering about this. So I would say, let's go, right? So keep the questions coming, and then I will do my best to answer them. Okay, first comment is there. I like it. Okay, I think now they are coming, and they're coming fast. Okay, let's start with the first one I'm seeing here. What are your thoughts on networking? Curious about levels in a company and whether you need senior manager referrals or junior referrals can also work. That's a good one. I love that. Now, when we speak about referrals, I like to distinguish them into two different categories. And the one is the seniority that this person or this individual would bring that is referring you. And the other one is the intensity of the relation that you have with that person, because in the end HR might likely ask, so where do you know this individual from? And if the answer then is, well, this guy has reached out to me 250 times on LinkedIn and then begged me for 10 minutes at the end of the meeting to give him that referral, well, might not be the same value that if you know a senior partner that you have worked with for 3 months intensely, and then he or she is telling HR, well, that's a good guy, right? And totally fine. We should see and interview him in the official process. So that means, in a nutshell, referrals, the clear answer is yes, the tighter the market, the more you will need to pull all levers on that way. Now, when we are speaking about referrals, there is usually, let's say, a good way to go about them and a very clumsy way. And what I see also my own LinkedIn messaging centers, also back then when I was working for McKinsey, that people are just reaching out with copy and pasted messages, essentially doing this in a 100-fold way. And you can really see this. And there's absolutely no reason for anyone to reply to you if you feel this was a copy and pasted message. So that means what you should do if you are serious about referrals, to identify the right people. And we usually recommend to use it in a commonalities-based approach. That means, what is the commonality in between you and that person? And the stronger this relation would be, the more likely you would get an answer. Once you have this identification, you reach out to them, building on that commonality, building on that fundament to make it significantly more likely that this person later on will answer you. And then later on, once this is the case, you then need to carefully design what we would then call a coffee chat, for example, or a quick get-to-know meeting, making sure that the other person is also clear on what's your core motivation, what they would potentially get out of a conversation with you, what you're bringing to the table, and how the other person can help you. And it's not about like, oh, can you give me a referral? It's about having a good discussion. And then at the end, if it's a positive, if it has been a positive meeting, then you can nudge into that direction and ask, what is now a good way to proceed? Because what I've heard from you seems indeed be interesting for my next career move. Right. So this is the long answer to the rather concise question, which is yes, you should go for referrals. Yes, the more senior and the more intense, the better. And yes, don't do it in a clumsy way, but design the reach out in a meaningful way to increase the chance that someone is getting back to you. So that was covering who to reach out to, how to reach out to, and why to reach out to these individuals. Hope that helped. So next one. This is one of my questions. Given my background in project management and mechanical engineering, what are the most effective strategies for transitioning to a tech-focused role? Are there specific skills or certifications I should acquire to make myself a more attractive candidate? So here the background is project management and mechanical engineering. So project management would be the assumption more in a practical context, and mechanical engineering more in a study or educational context. So this is what I would expect here. So in order to be interesting for a tech-focused role, you would need to break that down a bit further, because I'm not a big fan to just do blindly kind of certifications and trainings and whatsoever if you're not absolutely clear that this will lead to an improvement of your profile, that your profile would be perceived as significantly better compared to not having this additional certificate and this additional skill that is proven, quote unquote, from whatsoever institute that is essentially that you are paying, right, to get that certification. So that means, yes, it can make sense to do these certifications, but in the end, often they are of limited value, because they are of value if it's like hard criteria according to which you will be evaluated in the recruiting process, because then there's a good chance that your application would not be moving forward if you are missing a critical certificate, right, for security purposes, for example. But for the vast majority of people, what I'm seeing rather is that they have some time in between, like the end of the semester, right, or the end of their studies, and their first job or their next job, and then they do like rather blindly whatever kind of certifications, because they hope to improve their worth, to improve the perception of their profile. But this is usually a very, like, it's a shooting in the dark, more or less, because you just don't know if it is useful or not. I would do it rather the other way around. I would try to get the clarity needed in order to what is the next career step I would like to have, and then screen, let's say 10, 15, 20, 25 interesting job opportunities, and try to find out, is there a commonality in between what they are asking for to have in terms of certifications, and the yada yada yada. And if this is, it's a good signal that it might be worth it to pursue. But like, just because you believe it is important to have X, that is not necessarily the case for the employer you will go for, right? Now, let's take this a bit and zoom out here, because I think there's a lot of value in the question that you ask, because you ask about tech-focused role. Now, what even is a tech-focused role? Because that's like, you have this one generic resume, like this is how most people are approaching this, and then they say, oh yeah, let's see what I can, where I can send it to, right? Without the analysis of the actual need of that employer. So, there's what I like to call the Trinity, and it's usually the resume, the cover letter, and the job description. And let's not even speak about ways how you could get some intel or some more detailed information what the company actually needs. Because if you have seen and witnessed live how a job description is created, then it's usually the following process. There is whatsoever need, then this need is translated from HR into whatsoever job description, going through legal, adapted by like 2 to 3 things that they want to be perceived as an employer, and then it's put out to the platforms, right, in many instances. So that is not necessarily what in first place the actual manager of that team has asked for. So you also have a bit of, let's say, blurriness here in what you even will find in the job description to what is actually needed. And there are ways in pre-discussions, for example, when you are building your referral pipeline, as we have discussed it before, that you can actually try to find out that if your understanding on what they are needing and what they're actually needing is aligned. And then using that and trying to understand, okay, well, if this is what they are asking for, and this is what I am bringing, what's the bridge in between? How can I be perceived as the person who is ticking most of the boxes of what they are needing? And this is an individual process, and it needs to be repeated for every single job application that you would prioritize. And that is also the reason why for more selective jobs, it doesn't make sense to just reach out to 100 or 150 or 200 jobs, because this is essentially the copy and paste approach I spoke about at the beginning. No one is interested in this. No one will essentially hire you if you are one out of hundreds that are using the same approach. And then there's a lot of frustration of people speaking about, I've done like 200 applications and the companies don't even get back to me, right? And then I'm asking, like, how many different versions of your resume have you shared with them? And if I'm lucky, it's like 3 to 4, but usually it's 1, right? That's the opposite of trying to understand what this respective company at this respective moment in time needs. The opposite, right? It's like, I don't want to invest my time into proper research, not doing my homework, but I would love to get hired by you out of the couple of 100 applications that you're receiving. I mean, look, That's just not the right approach. So now coming back to the question, why I'm speaking about this in that much detail is because the specific skills a tech-focused role would need can be super heterogeneous. So there will be a lot of very different and nuanced asks depending on the concrete employer, potentially even geography, for sure function, and for sure seniority. So there is not like the one answer here that you will be getting, unfortunately for me. But I'm answering with the process here, because the process is to understand what they are needing, right, to make that research, then to think about what do you bring to the table, do that mapping exercise, and then try to find a way to convincingly speak about your past experiences in a way that you are perceived as ticking all the boxes on what they need, right? So sorry for this rather extensive answer here to that rather concise question, but I think it's important to shed light on the nuances here. All right, next one. Let me just see. Have seen in my personal experience that more junior talent can be helpful, but not lead to actual interviews and jobs. Not 100% sure if I do understand this. I think this was related to the question about networking, right? So how useful is it if you have a junior referral or someone junior trying to improve your chances to get further or get through to the next round in the recruiting process? So if I understand this correctly, then yes, indeed. I mean, a junior referral, now speaking again about seniority and intensity, right? Junior referral can also be good if it is an intense connection, but it's not as much worth as a senior referral. So this is, I think, a fair other statement most applications. So here is hi, I hope this message finds you well. Introduction into cold outreach messages. Instead, your last post was spot on. Do you agree with this approach? Okay, that is a suggestion here for networking, if I see this correctly. So yeah, that would be one way to indeed reach out to someone in a more specific way, right? Not being perceived as copy and pasting things, but being perceived as actually taking the time to read the perspectives and statements of the person you would want to interact with. That's for sure already significantly better than what the majority of people on LinkedIn will do. Okay, so let me see. Further questions here. Okay, thank you. You are welcome. Okay, let's see if I have gone through all of them already. What's the first step towards a career change? Yes, what's the first step towards a career change? That's a good one, actually. Well, in a nutshell, it's about getting clarity on what you want. And I'm a big fan of building your career journey in a forward-looking way. So what does it mean? If you're having the clarity on what you would like to do in a couple of years' time with your professional life, and where you would like to have professional impact. So what is it that you ultimately aspire to do in a couple of years' time? Then you could do a status quo analysis here and ask yourself, okay, so where I am at on that journey and what is missing in between where I'm now and where I will want to be in a couple of years' time. And this analysis is essentially then giving you a lot of insights and potentially also suggestions on what your next and your next job on the way needs to be in order to maximize your chances to end up where you would want to be ultimately in a couple of years' time. So this is how I would approach this, and this is also how I would think about this, always with the end in mind, and not like going away from something, but going towards something. So what is the difference? Going away from something is I don't feel valued. I don't think I'm getting enough compensation. I don't think this is giving me the feelings I need to have in order to give a decent life. I whatsoever. Yeah, right. If this is the motivation for a career change, then there is a huge likeliness that you will find the same impressions, perceptions in the new job too. Because what you changed was the circumstances in the hope that it will get better somewhere else. But if you don't know what you are actually looking for, it will be super challenging. It will be super challenging that you could get closer to it. And what I feel I'm speaking to very senior people, right? And it's the challenges are not really different, right? I had a very senior executive on strategy most recently in one of my calls, and this person was steering millions and millions and millions of budget and essentially being responsible for the strategy of that respective company. And I'm pretty sure he's doing a good job, but he had literally no strategy for his own professional life, only vague directions. And this is something where I believe you could be significantly more systematic. So, and now coming back to the question, the first step towards a career change, if you want to feel different in the new role, if you want to be systematic in go into the direction that you believe is most helpful and valuable for you at this moment in time, then get clarity first and then make a plan to get from A closer to your desired direction B, right? And this is what we are supporting people with essentially every single week, because it's important that you are not only having clarity, but you're breaking it down into something tangible that you can then also follow through, because every career transition is a journey. All right. Let me see if there's anything else coming in. Okay, there's more incoming. Okay. Can a global finance trainee in household appliance, Fortune 500, in China transition to MBBs for the junior level, like associate or consultants, or need to acquire a top MBA like in SEAT or LSE? Now, you can transition into MBB. So for everyone who is not familiar with this, so that's McKinsey, Bain, and BCG, so the top tier strategy consulting companies. You can transition into these companies if you bring an appealing profile. And there is by no means a precondition that you would need a top MBA in order to have an improved, or like, you don't need it, period, right? If your profile already is appealing, you don't need it. And you should also not wait with applying because you just don't know if it would not already be enough. So what is rather important is that you show pre-selection, that you show quantitative proof of what you have done so far, that you show excellence in your resume. So chances are good that if you can prove that you have been outstanding in the delivery of your previous tasks, and also educationally have a very strong track record, and also have gone through, let's say, a decent university, and decent university is very different depending on where in the world you are, how this is perceived, then I would definitely reach out as early as possible to these companies and see how far I am getting. And only if this is not enough to get considered to be invited to interviews, then I would consider or go for an MBA. And yes, absolutely, a top MBA is improving your profile and usually brings dedicated recruiting channels with it. So there's just then also another opportunity you could seize in order to increase the chances that you are ending up with an interview compared to not having one. So, I mean, I've a lot discussed already about the worth of an MBA for several different, from the several different perspectives, from a pure business perspective and from a pure career perspective. It can help, but it would always be only my second option if I could not go with where I would like to go without it, right? And I would do my best and push as hard as anyhow possible that this can be done also without one, because it's such an investment, and this investment needs to pay off in the longer term. And then you can have the discussion on your network and also great, right? And stamp of excellence. Yeah, true. But if you already have a strong track record, then it might be one further stamp of excellence on your resume, but it's not necessarily needed to be interviewed from these companies. So, long answer for a short question, but I hope you see the nuances here. Any tricks for introverts on how to market themselves properly? Yeah. So that's tricky, right? So there are two answers I would like to give for this. So let's first segment the framing around introverts. So what exactly would that be in an interviewing situation? Because it's not like you are in a big room with like 20 other people that and you would need to stand out in that room of individuals or people that are all wanting to have the same job, but you are in a setting where you are speaking often one-on-one or at max with a panel of evaluators. So it's not a situation where you could hide. It's a one-on-one situation, and the respective interviewers usually will also help you if they feel that you are not well, or feeling pressure, or don't know how to frame a sentence or an idea. So it's not like a high caliber or high pressure environment in a sense for an introvert, where there's a lot of people need to stand out and everyone will look at you, but it's rather a conversation often, right? So one conversation at the most. So that means it depends a bit on what exactly is it that you don't feel well with. But I would say in the situation of the interview itself, the environment already is not that problematic, right? Compared to a situation where you would have a lot of different people, 20 or so, and you would need to speak up. So that's the first thing. Now, the second thing is, with regards to your preparation, I made the experience that the second you feel well prepared, and the second you do have the clarity on how you would want to be perceived as an individual, it gets significantly easier also to just have a regular conversation. Because, I mean, in the end, you will speak about yourself, and who can know yourself better than you? So that also means once you have that clarity and you are prepared and you know the professional picture that you would want to convey and how you would want to be perceived, in this moment, usually a lot of pressure is reduced. So that means for introverts, I would ask the question back. So what are the things that usually keep you calm? What are the things that usually help you to feel safe? What are the things that help you to perform, be the best version of yourself? What is that? And then to think about how could you apply these to the actual interviews, and then make sure to be the absolute best prepared person in the room. And this, for many, gives a certain level of confidence and gives them the right state in order to indeed give the best performance they can at this moment in time. So I hope this was helpful. There's one more. How would you navigate your story in interviews? So if you've made conscious sacrifice, taking a lower or paid less known work because it was more focused on experience, to work in a specific industry, consulting, but it has not improved my chances. Okay, let me try to understand this again. How would you navigate your story in interviews if you have made conscious sacrifice to work in a specific industry? Well, I would always start with what is the most important thing for you to achieve in your career, and then I would break it down and prove it that this was the most important thing by doing X, Y, and Z, because it was that important to me that I was proactively not taking the higher paying job, that I was proactively not, or like I was taking a lower paying job, even if I would have the chance to go for another one, right? And then, I mean, this point is getting stronger the bigger the gap in between the two different jobs would have been, right? If it's like 150 euros a year, right? Maybe not the best point to raise or to mention, but if it's like a cut by 20, 30, 40%, because you believe that this is the right move for you, and it indeed improves your profile, then I think it's a very strong intrinsic that you should show. But first, I would always start with what you ultimately would want to do and would want to achieve. And then also making sure that this is in line with what the other party is looking for in the candidates that they are interviewing. So once this has been taking place, for me, this is rather a proof that you are totally serious about this ambition, this endeavor, this direction. And you not only just say this, but you have a concrete example here where you can showcase the sacrifices on that journey. That's the way how I would position the story. How do you explain gaps in your resume as a result of sacrificing? So to try to get into a new industry and it has not worked out. How do you explain a gap in your resume as a result of sacrificing? Why would you have a gap in your resume? I mean, if you're doing it smartly, you would not have a gap in your resume, right? Why would you, for example, say, yeah, I'm quitting everything I'm doing right now in order to make that one move? And then after 6 months or so, you realize that one move didn't work, right? So why would you do that? The way how I'm seeing careers and the way how I would hedge risks is always to have an option B. Why would you position yourself so narrowly on that one thing? And especially for consulting, I mean, we have helped hundreds of people breaking into MBB. And the situation for them was also often that they already worked for 50, 60, 70 hours in a lower tier consultancy, for example. And even for them, it was possible to prepare themselves. So here, my first question would be back, why would then that there is no need for a resume gap? And if you have now one, then the approach was not, I think, too nuanced and too much of a good idea to risk a gap for something that didn't materialize. So, I mean, obviously, I would need to have the individual situation here to really understand this, but usually it's not necessary to have or risk a gap for a move into consulting, right? Absolutely not. But okay, let's still try to be helpful here. So how would I explain this? I would try to frame it as a time period in your life where you were trying to improve a specific skill set, right? And then you would need to have a good reasoning why you would want to improve that specific skill set. And at best, also something tangible at the very end that is proving that you indeed have done it. Now, coming back to the certification point, from a couple of minutes ago. Here, it might be rescuing you, right, in the narrative that you can use in order to bridge that gap. So that means if you could prove that you have intensely worked on a specific topic in that amount or in that duration, this is what I would try. But again, in first place, this should not even happen. So for everyone who's in the call, make sure that if you are trying to get a specific result here that is super selective and only a low probability chance, that you always have an option B. And also, that's the last comment here with regards to this topic. What we're seeing, it's so much better if you already have an option B secured before you're going for your option A, because it gives you confidence on the way. It usually also has a fallback option, which is stressing many people less than in the interviews. And it's just a nice way to design an interviewing journey in what we call staggered approach. So this is the way how I would think about this instead of trying to shut down everything in order to prepare for a low probability opportunity. So then, do you think employers are more interested in your story or your skills? How important is it to show a consistent story that has led you to apply for this job? Struggling to sell my transferable skills. So is your story more important than your skills? No, I wouldn't say so. Because at best, your story is leveraging your skills. It's not an either or, right? So, I mean, obviously, if we now would speak about top strategy consulting, there you have different parts in the interview that are tested. Yes, that's true. But I wouldn't say that either the story or the skills are more important. In a regular interviewing format, you would try to combine these two anyways. And how do you do this? And I don't like the framing of story, because I like to call it narrative. And why do I like to call it narrative is because it needs to be adapted. This is not, you don't speak about yourself there without reflection on the other party, right? It's the opposite. You try to first think about the other party, and then you tailor what is important for them and speak about your own experiences and past in order to prove what you want to be perceived as standing for. Now, that was a complicated sentence, but let me try to segment this a bit more. So first, in the narrative, you would like to showcase what you ultimately would want to do, how this is aligned with what the company is looking for, how you have done in your past already the necessary steps to get to the level where you're at right now, showcasing that you could do a good job with what they are needing, but at the same time also showcasing that you have big ambitions for the future that are in line with what these companies are looking for. And you only will be able to do this if you have a clear picture about the professional version of yourself that you want to sell, that how you want to be perceived as. Because often the preparation for these, let's say, behavioral interviews, or let's say non-technical interviews where you don't have a specific format and a right or wrong approach or testing the process, but really rather having a conversation with a professional. The biggest problem that I'm seeing is that people try to learn things by heart. And hope they get the same question asked as someone else who has taken that interview last week, and like Google stuff like, let me search for what are the top 10 questions asked in XYZ interview. What are the top 10 questions asked in whatsoever, right? And the approach is to try to prepare your answers and then to recite them like a poem. And that's the exact wrong way of doing it. That's by first and foremost, if you're going for a senior role, that is you're losing your complete frame. If you're doing this, you're losing your complete frame, because this is not perceived as a sign of seniority, right? That's super insecure junior behavior. Sorry for being that blunt here, right? So that means you shouldn't do that. What you should do instead is have the clarity on what kind of professional you are and you want to be in a couple of years' time, and then relate that back to the respective company. And now, to get back to your question of story and skills, this is essentially something you can combine when you are doing it as I've just shared with you. So then it's about calibration and practice of the delivery of this in a convincing way to be perceived as a senior, as a mature, as a valuable candidate. So this is how I would see things, and this is how I would position it. All right, next one. I've seen hundreds of posts on Reddit about people having absolutely no idea what to do in their professional lives. What would be your approach to that? Now, that's a good one. Let me think about how to answer it best. So I could now wear my professional hat, right? But I would love to wear my private hat first. Because ultimately, I don't believe you should see your professional life separately from your personal life, because there's such a huge interrelation, and you cannot completely isolate this. So I would first start with the question, what do you want to do to be as an individual? And then answering the question, and what is the role of your professional life, of your career, related to this? And then you can think about what's the direction to take here, with a couple of years horizon. How can I try to get closer to the professional that I would want to be in a couple of years' time, living the life as an individual I would want to live, right? So this is how I would approach it. And the reason why people have no idea about what they want to do with their careers is because in reality, I think for most of them, they have no idea what they want to do with their lives. That's a rather harsh answer here. So sorry for being that direct. But I believe this is in many instances the core reason, and also in the, I don't know, thousands, tens of thousands of conversations I had with individuals trying to push for their next career step. It was obvious that many of them didn't have a plan, right? So they were following this, going away from something logic, not this going towards a direction, something towards they believe is useful for them and meaningful for them, something that they believe they can live a decent life with. And I'm not speaking about compensation, because compensation is only one aspect of a satisfied career. Okay, sorry for being that in your face here with this question. Let me see, what else do we have? What should you say in cover letters if you don't know the exact name? I know dear hiring manager is bad, but what should you do? Hmm. Well, in first place, you should try to do your best to actually find it out. But it's not always possible because, for example, if there is a headhunting agency in the middle, or if it's not disclosed for whatever reason to you, I mean, what should you do? Then you can ask for, or like frame it around the hiring committee, or yeah. So there is not really a good way around. If you have invested the effort in order to find the actual person's name, and it's not popping up for whatever reason, or it wasn't meant to pop up, then the hiring manager or hiring committee is fine, is okay, right? Because there's not really like a better solution I've stumbled across so far. And to be fairly honest, for them, it also doesn't really matter, right? So what would be bad is if you have not invested these couple of minutes and show that you have done your homework. But in general, and most of the cases, if this is not given, it's not a problem. All right. Let me see. Do you believe hiring managers should actually read cover letters or just scan them? Both. I think most of them are scanning them and then potentially getting back after they have seen the rest and find some value in actually going through the details and nuances of that specific candidate. So in first place, no one will like read all of that stuff that you're writing them if there are like, let's say 100 applications, right? But the second you caught the interest of the HR individual, there might be a chance that they will read it. And also potentially later on in the process, they might get read, right? So that means I see cover letter as a great additional chance to explain things that is not self-explanatory in your resume or from your resume, right? So this is something what I would focus on. So think about when you're writing a cover letter, what's the motivation to join that respective company, then speak about why them, right? Speak about why you, and then speak about why the both of you. So that is a structure for a good cover letter. And if you need to explain something in your resume that they would care anyways later on in the process, then the cover letter indeed might be already a good place to do so, right? Because you can about some things that would come out anyways in the process, you can be upfront because there is literally no way that you will sneak through if it's a bigger thing. So I would rather proactively position this at the beginning when you have a chance to frame the first impression. And this is not done very often in the process, and requires also a bit of nuances and calibration, usually from people that have done this more often. But it can be very worth it. So I would definitely try to use a cover letter and to actually make the most out of them. Because also if you have once you have written like, let's say 5, 6, 7 or so, the adaptation to the specific nuances of what this one employer needs is only minor work. So Another question from a friend. She has a high prestigious degree in piano. However, she applies for roles in finance. Should she include the piano degree in her resume? Mhm. I would do so, yes. I would do so. So the question is, what do you want to convey? And you will convey a lot, having been playing the piano for years in high intensity, right? And I would even go further and ask back. So did she win any tournaments here? Was this like that sounds a little bit funny, but competitive piano playing? Was this something where she can prove that she has been below the top like 5% of piano players in her region, in her geography? Because if this is the case, it's highly relevant, or can be highly relevant, for the respective company. And the reason why is because it shows a lot about her as an individual. It shows determination. It shows dealing with stress, with pain. It shows competitiveness. It shows excellence. So I would say, if this was a prestigious degree, and if she, in addition, can also speak about the results and the achievements she has secured with doing that, I believe it's relevant. Yes. However, the focus still needs to be on her finance capabilities, right? So that means she shouldn't hide it, but this is also not the core of her resume. This should be clear, I hope. All right. Now we are 5 minutes to the end. Actually, this was supposed to be half an hour, right? But there were quite some more questions. So all good from my end. Let me know if there's anything else. I'm waiting for a couple of more seconds, and then we're gonna conclude for today. Drop me a message, please, either in the DMs on LinkedIn or on YouTube or on Instagram or on Facebook or on whatsoever, where you have seen this stream or where you've gained through this, because I would love to see if this is a valuable format for you guys or not, because I'm investing my time here, making sure that this should be useful for you. And let's just see if it is, because then I might decide to do this more regularly. So there's another one, last one for today. What is the best time to submit the application to MBBs? So again, MBBs, McKinsey, Bain, BCG. Option 1, ASAP. Option 2, wait until the last day of the deadline. Is there any difference between the two approaches? I mean, I don't see a good reason why you would wait with something like this, right? So most likely your profile is not changing compared to now. So this is for me, it's a question that reflects a bit that there might not be the right how to say that, the right focus on the focus on the right thing. So there's only a certain thing that you can influence, and this is completely out of your sphere of influence. And there's also no like systematic process that is done in all MBBs and all regions of the world that are all HR individuals are following, right? So it's simply non-existing. That means here, and to answer this question, I usually tell people, apply as soon as it makes sense. So obviously don't just rush into this, but if your resume is not getting better until the end of the application deadline, why would you wait? What you would wait for? What is changing? Usually nothing is changing. So therefore, my suggestion is to actually shoot, right? Do it now. Do it now. So the second you are ready, the second this resume has been the best you can create, and you decided to not have like a senior person calibrating it, then I would send it. So as ASAP would be my suggestion with the additional comments I just gave. Good. That was about it for today. So As said, drop me please a message if you like that format, if you would like to have more of this, or post it here, or like, or whatsoever, right? And if there is enough feedback, then I will consider to do this again. Have a good weekend for the moment. I hope that was useful, and enjoy the rest of the day. Bye bye.